G'day, welcome back. Today I'm continuing the series on World Chess Championship blunders, and last time we looked at the 1954 Chess World Championship, which was drawn between Botvinnik and Smyslov, and in 1957 Smyslov again qualified to play Botvinnik, and this time he won relatively easily and became the chess world champion. So let's just quickly look at a bit of the background here. I've got the Wikipedia page up, 1957. So there was a candidates tournament. You can see the names there: Bronstein, Keres, Pano, Petrosian, Geller, Salvo, Philip, Filmik, and Spassky qualified for the candidates. And they added on Smyslov, who won the candidates last time. So they were the players. So the interesting thing here is this is the first time we see Boris Spassky. I mean, he'll have to wait a while because Tal and Petrosian will become world champions before him, but it's his first appearance on the world stage. There's a nice picture of all the players. I don't recognize all of them. The main ones I do. There's Smyslov, the second guy, Keres, and then you have Bronstein, Geller, Spassky, Petrosian. Russians all standing together nicely there. And there's the cross table with Smyslov winning. Like he won the 1953 reasonably straightforward fashion, and the same here. I mean, they talk about fairly close at the end. Keres once again lost a key games, but that had a bit to do with it. And then the championship match. So that was just the background. And what we've got here, let's go back to my analysis screen. It seems to be displaying nicely. You can see the top right chart, the overall score of the match. Smyslov is in blue, and after about game 7, you can see he kind of roared away. And in fact, the match finished after 22 games because Smyslov had already got more than 12 points at that stage. And what we're going to look at today, I'm going to briefly look at game 4, which was a blunder by Smyslov, but he was already losing, so it's not that relevant. And the blunders my chart show in game 10 didn't actually happen. This is sort of another case of the Kaiser base sometimes has like moves, transition moves in wrong order, and wasn't actually a blunder in that. And the main one we're going to look at is game 15. Basically, we're looking at game 15 today. It was quite a tricky end game, and in some ways, Smyslov made an error, and Botvinnik did not seize the day, and the game ended up a draw. Perhaps he could have won that game, and at that stage, the match could still have been relatively close. Let's quickly have a look at game 4. You can see the score there. I'm looking at about move 35, where Botvinnik is already well ahead, and then Smyslov makes an inaccuracy here and then gets cut to ribbons. Let's just have a look at the position, and the move played by Smyslov is queen to f3. Just a quick look and see what's wrong with that. It's fairly simple tactic, and this was in fact the game continuation. Basically sack the exchange, and then now you can see that this has opened up the diagonal to check. The suggested move rather than queen f3 was to play a3 and create a bit of luft. Didn't do that because now this check is devastating because the king can't move the knight back there because it'll be checkmate on c1. So king has to move up and check in front. Now this is where what are you going to do? For instance, if you throw something in the way, which is the computer recommended line, well, you just that variation. It'll just be dropping a piece, right? And black will end up. So basically, that was kind of a very sort of simple tactic, which sort of meant the game came to its logical conclusion perhaps faster than it would otherwise have done. So now what we're going to move along to is, as I say, game 15. Okay, so here is the key position, and we're looking at this is the position after h4, move 53 by white, and this is where Smyslov, playing black, blundered, and then you can see on that evaluation line, and then Botvinnik blundered back straight away. So the position shown is actually a draw. So let's have a look. We'll go through the drawing line first. Have a look. Maybe think about this position. You can see it's white has an extra pawn, but it's a c pawn and a h pawn. Obviously, disadvantage there. The g pawn stops the h pawn in terms of not a passed pawn, and the c pawn is quite exposed to attacks from the black rook and the black king. Anyway, so the drawing technique is just to keep your rook flexible. So here's a typical line: rook to a1, and then let's say I've got a couple lines here to go through. So I'm doing this a bit more detail because I want to understand, why this is a draw myself, and then we can understand a bit more and go through the game continuation what the winning line missed by Botvinnik was. So one possibility here is to push either of the pawns. I mean, otherwise you're not making any progress, right? So you push the c5 pawn, then black can just wait, and then you might think, well, push the other pawn, get behind the c pawn, and that sort of freezes the c pawn. So, for instance, this could be a continuation. As you can see, that white can't take that pawn because his h pawn would be hanging. So if he protects the h pawn, for instance, then you get a position where this is not winning. I think there was a continuation where the king gets boxed in. Back to rook a1. Another possible continuation is press h pawn. So if we look at that line, once again, just hold station with the king. This reason of putting the rook on the back rank gives you the possibility of protecting the pawn and stopping the white king from taking your g pawn, except under favorable circumstances. Now you're attacking the h pawn, and if you defend behind it, then we've got a very similar locked-up position. You can see that there's not much winning chances here because either h pawn's going to drop, and anyway, black can probably pick up the c pawn. So that was kind of the flexible way, playing rook to a1. So the rook can hassle along the back rank, attack the pawn, hassle along the back rank, attack the pawn, and then step behind the c pawn, which you can always do because the rook, the white rook, is on the same row as the c pawn, so the white rook can't get behind the c pawn in a very effective manner. Okay, so that was the continuation, which was win. So let's have a look at what black actually played rook c6. Now this is very restricting. Now there's only one winning move which white missed. Let's go through the game continuation first. White played h5, and then actually we end up with similar continuations to the lines we had before, where it just ended. White couldn't make any progress, couldn't effectively push the c pawn, and black can hold the g pawn. So the winning line was actually rook f5 check. Let's have a look why this wins. So there's two main lines. Black goes back to the 6th rank, or he goes forwards to the 4th rank. That's the two major continuations. So let's do the most logical one. Let's say if we drop back, right? That makes sense. Problem now is that white gets to play c5, right? c5, and now the pawn is held by the white rook, and the difference here is the black rook is in a bad situation, very restricted. So we'll just continue a typical continuation. So black is just waiting, check, and here's the winning continuation. When the circumstances are favorable, the king has moved over to the queen side, and now the king is going to be able to shepherd the pawn forwards, particularly since the sort of the checking distance is not very great either. But in either way, that c pawn is going to cost. So that was one continuation. That rook f5 check is and then the other possibility is to go king d6, but then you get the same line because now you get c5 check, and the king moves, and you have the same continuation where the black king will come behind the rook over to the queen side. Okay, so the other possibility is that the black king could move forwards to the 4th rank. Now this doesn't look great, obviously, because you're now perhaps going to be cut off from behind from both pawns. So push h pawn, c pawn. You can see the rook's kind of out of place. There's a computer line, rook c6, check again, 6. Now it penetrates. Pick up the g pawn fairly soon, either with the king, or can be a bit dangerous picking up with the king just in case you get checked away. We'll continue the computer line here just to satisfy. Put the rook there, so it might well be the rook's going to pick up g pawn. One way or another, this g pawn is dropping, and actually we can improve our position first. Push c6, so king e5, e8, 8. In fact, the computer is now saying, the way to win this is just to keep this formation here and just run over and pawn the c pawn. So that was the opportunity which Botvinnik missed. He should have played rook f5 check, played h5, and they kind of devolved into a position which he couldn't win. Yeah, anyway, so that's always interesting to look at a tricky rook endgame. We've had a lot of those in these more recent World Championship matches here. And part of the reason is that the standard of play has improved quite a bit, so we're getting more endgames. Next time, we'll be looking at the rematch where, Smyslov sort of ascended the mountain. He's world champion. Back in those days, Botvinnik had a rematch clause, so he will actually basically win his title back next time around 1958. And we'll look at the blunders in that World Chess Championship match next video. Thank you very much for watching.